In the year 260, after the conquest on a chain of barren islands in the narrow sea, a young knight of the Kingsguard cut down a warlord with 2 heads, growing from his shoulders. The knight was Barristan Selmy. The warlord was Maelys the Monstrous, and with that stroke, Barristan ended a war that had been burning on and off for 64 years. 5 rebellions, 5 pretenders, tens of thousands dead across 4 generations, an exiled army that would one day sail home, and a one-eyed sorcerer who would end his days in a cave beneath a weirwood tree, waiting for a boy named Bran. None of this appears in the television series, not one scene, and yet almost every unresolved thread in A Song of Ice and Fire runs back to a single bad decision made by a dying king. This is the story of House Blackfyre. History calls him Aegon IV, Aegon the Unworthy. He was grandson to the boy king who watched the dragons die. He inherited a whole realm and a clear succession, and he undid both almost entirely for his own amusement. He was married to his sister Nerys. Devout, sickly, and openly repulsed by him, she gave him one son, Daemon, and nearly died doing it. Nerys had another brother, Aemon the Dragon Knight of the Kingsguard, the finest knight of his age. Aemon and Nerys were close, and Aegon, who loved a rumour more than he loved his wife, encouraged the whisper that his own heir was not his own son. There is no evidence it was true. Aemon died defending Aegon's life. It did not matter. Once a king says a thing about his own succession, it cannot be unsaid, because the truth was simpler. Aegon did not like his son. Daemon read, Daemon thought, he was in every particular a rebuke to the man who fathered him, and Aegon had another son he liked a great deal more. Daemon Waters was born in 170 AC, son of Aegon and his cousin Daena Targaryen. Everything Aegon wanted in an heir, Daemon was. Knighted at 12, open-handed, charming, magnificent. He looked like a Targaryen king out of a song, and Daemon looked like a clerk. And on Daemon's 12th name day, his father gave him Blackfyre, the Valyrian steel sword of Aegon the Conqueror, carried by every Targaryen king since. Not an heirloom, a symbol of the right to rule. Aegon took the sword of kings and put it in the hands of his bastard. The realm heard a king naming his choice. Aegon IV died in 184 AC at 49, so obese he could no longer walk, his limbs rotting while he still lived, and on his deathbed he legitimized every bastard he had ever fathered. Those born to noble women became the great bastards. Daemon, who took the name Blackfyre after his sword. Aegor Rivers, hard, bitter, brilliant, called Bittersteel. Bryndon Rivers, pale as bone, marked cheek to throat with a red birthmark, shaped like a raven, Bloodraven, and Shira Seaster, with one eye blue and one eye green. Note what Aegon had done. Bittersteel's mother was a bracken, Bloodraven's was a blackwood. Those houses had feuded for 1,000 years. Aegon put their blood in the same generation of the same royal family and set them against each other for a throne. Both men wanted Shira. She chose Bloodraven. Bittersteel never forgave it. Daemon's supporters claimed he had wanted to marry his half-sister Daenerys, and that his father had promised him more than one wife. We have that only from his partisans. But Daemon married Daenerys to Marin Martell, and that marriage brought Dawn into the realm, peacefully ending 2 centuries of war. Then, at her wedding tourney in 187, Daemon entered the lists. He did not win. He was unhorsed in the final tilt by Prince Baela Breakspear, Daemon's Dornish-blooded heir, beaten at his lost love's wedding by the son of the brother who had taken everything. Daemon II was, by any measure, a good king. He ruled through law rather than fire, and the realm prospered. A great many lords hated him for it. Peace has losers. Every Marcher lord whose family had bled against Dawn now watched Dornish men take places at court. Bittersteel and Sir Quentyn Ball called Fireball, Master-at-Arms of the Red Keep, passed over for a white cloak, spent years telling Daemon the realm was waiting. Eventually, he believed them. In 196 AC, Daemon raised his banner. He did not change the colours, he inverted them. Where the Targaryens flew a red dragon on black, House Blackfyre flew black on red. Not a new house, the true one. Nearly half the realm rose with him. What he lacked was speed. Bittersteel argued for an immediate march on King's Landing. Daemon hesitated, and every week he waited. Bloodraven gathered another 1,000 loyalists. Then the rebellion lost the man who had made it. Fireball had killed a Lord Lefford outside Lannisport, and driven Daemon Lannister back behind the walls of Casterly Rock. On the eve of battle, he stopped for a drink of water, and a common archer killed him. Visual: 2 armies on a plain of tall red grass. They met on a field that history named for what happened to it. The Redgrass Field. The fighting went Daemon's way for most of the day. He fought in the front rank, which was the kind of king he was and the kind of commander he was not. On a rise above the field, Brynden Rivers waited with 700 archers he had trained himself. The Raven's Teeth. Bloodraven had one order for them, and it was not to break the enemy line. It was to find his half-brother. Daemon Blackfyre died with 7 arrows in him. His twin sons died beside him. Bittersteel charged the ridge in a fury. He and Bloodraven fought hand to hand, and Bittersteel took his eye and could not take his life. Then Baelor Breakspear struck the rebel rear and closed the trap. 10,000 dead in the grass that gave the field its name, but Bittersteel escaped and took Daemon's surviving sons with him. That is the detail that mattered. In Essos, Bittersteel forged the survivors into the Golden Company, the finest fighting force in the Free Cities, with one rule that made them famous: they do not break their contracts. Ever. It was never a business. It was a government in exile with a payroll. Bittersteel was still waiting when he died in 241 AC, 45 years after the Redgrass Field. 4 more times the Black Dragon rose. In 212, a conspiracy around Daemon II assembled under cover of a tourney, and was unravelled by a hedge knight called Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire, a boy named Egg. Bloodraven had known from the start. He let every disloyal lord in the realm gather in one castle and identify himself, then closed his hand. In 219, Aegon Blackfyre was killed after surrendering. Bittersteel was taken, sent toward the wall, and escaped. In 236, Daemon III died at Wendwater Bridge, killed by the same Duncan the Tall, now sworn to the same Egg, now King Aegon V. And in 259, Maelys the Monstrous, last male of the line, who took command of the Golden Company by tearing his cousin's head off with his hands, gathered 8 other adventurers to carve up the Stepstones and invade. The Iron Throne sent an army, and a young Kingsguard knight cut his way through the line to reach him. 64 years, 5 rebellions, 100,000 dead over one man's deathbed whim. Except that isn't the end, because 3 things came out of these wars that are still moving. The first is Bloodraven. The man who killed his half-brother from a ridge became the most feared hand in Targaryen history. Spymaster, sorcerer, 1,000 eyes and 1. He was sent to the wall for executing a Blackfyre under a peace banner, rose to Lord Commander, and in 252 rode out beyond the wall and never came back. He did not die out there, the pale thing in the cave, wrapped in weirwood roots, teaching a broken boy from Winterfell to see through the eyes of ravens. That is Brynden Rivers. Bran Stark's entire education comes from the man who won the Redgrass Field with an ambush. The second is the Golden Company. 10,000 men who have never broken a contract, sitting in Essos for 2 centuries with one purpose: to go home. In A Dance with Dragons, they break their contract, for the first time in their history. Abandon a paid campaign and land in the Stormlands. An army defined by keeping its word breaks its word, which tells you they believe they finally have what Bittersteel waited for. The third is a boy called Aegon, presented as Rhaegar Targaryen's murdered son, arriving with that company at his back. Many readers believe he is a Blackfyre, and that the Golden Company knows exactly what it is backing. If that is right, the last Blackfyre rebellion is not the War of the Ninepenny Kings. It is happening right now, and nobody in Westeros has recognized it. Aegon IV was a vain, sick, spiteful man who wanted to needle a son he disliked. He gave away a sword. He signed a parchment. He spread a rumor about his own wife. 100,000 people died for it, and the last of them are still dying. Aegon the Unworthy. The name was not an insult. It was a verdict. Bloodraven's full history is the next video in this series. Subscribe and you'll get it when it lands.